What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. It helps the channel grow when you guys do things like that. I really do appreciate everybody for doing that. Let's get going. Let's start talking about Bitcoin, man. Let's do some price analysis for the short-term stuff, and no more dilly-dallying. Let's get started. So, I wanted to do a long-term analysis today. That was actually what I was kind of working on before I started this video, but I saw some stuff in the shorter term that I feel like is more pressing to address. We'll go over the long term. I'll make a nice long term video for Bitcoin, but just not today. Maybe in a couple days or sometime later this week. Perhaps after this week is closed, actually. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to. Is I think that this weekly close is pretty important. And there's a couple different indicators we're going to go over as to why that is. So, first and foremost, looking at Bitcoin on a daily basis on our RSI, our general RSI here, which I believe I have this one set. It's either at a 10 or a 14. It's at a 10, so it's a shorter term one, but at any rate, it's near the 50, crowd in the 50 here. Looking to make a decision. It's really neutral. It's not bullish, it's not bearish, but hopefully we get a move that takes us above the 50 and not below the 40. If we do that, we might be going back down to anywhere from like 53K to 50K, maybe even lower. Okay, so essentially how we would know when that happens is what we do with price, right? Are we going to break out to the downside, or are we going to break out to the upside, right? And right now we are at risk of breaking down to the downside. We are. The 4-hour RSI is relatively neutral. It's not bearish. At the moment, it's more bearish than bullish, but really overall, it's kind of relatively neutral. This move yesterday was not good. It's definitely not what we wanted to see. A lot of volume came in, and not on the breakout, but on the kind of, I would call that a rejection. It looks like a short-term rejection for sure. And this could be the difference. This candle right here, genuinely, yesterday's candle, that big 4-hour candle, it's not that big, but what, it was like 3% in a 4-hour period, 6% for Bitcoin in a day is big these days, so I guess the 3% candle on a 4-hour period is kind of big. But I digress. What I'm trying to say is that could have been the undoing of this consolidation effort right here, looking to break out to the upside. I'm sort of in the camp right now, and I just looked this up, right? I just made a Litecoin video calling for it to go higher, and I did say toward the end that it could go lower. It might be that go lower part. It might actually go lower, and a lot of my upward direction calls over the past few days, I still think that they're valid. I think that they will come to fruition, but we just might be putting a pause on that, and that's something that I want to say too. Back what I was saying in the beginning of this video, saying that I want to see how this week closes. I think it is important to see how this week closes. I want to wait until the end of the week. We have about 4 days left, 3 days, 21 hours, and see where we are, right? Because I think by the end of this week, and maybe even before then, we'll have resolution as to which direction we're breaking out. As of right now, at the bottom of this consolidation phase, it's very easy to look at it and be like, we're probably going to go down. But the RSI is still neutral. The price action really hasn't chosen a direction, but from a fib perspective, it would make sense to go a little bit lower to this 382, at least down there. And if you break through that, which you really could, you might be going all the way down to 54, 53K or lower, right? And that would send a cascade throughout the markets that Bitcoin could be going down, so the rest of cryptos might be going down too. But again, pulling back down even to 54, 53K, that's the 618 golden ratio zone, right? Like that's very healthy, very normal stuff to do. So it would be a higher low overall. Hopefully that'd be the worst of it. Hopefully this is the worst of it and we turn around from here. But I'm starting to think that we are going to go down over the coming days. And that's okay, just as long as we hold key areas. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to give up this low. And that still is a kind of risk right now. I'm calling for this to be the low. I've been calling for it for I don't know how long now, just a little bit of time. I mean, whenever it came in. Maybe it was this big green convincing day, or maybe it was a couple days before, I forget. Maybe it was on the day. I don't remember. I don't care. It's not about that. What I'm trying to say is we don't want that low to be given up on. If that low is given up on, we're going well below 50K, probably to 46,000, 42,000, maybe even lower, and that could put a lot of different altcoins in jeopardy. You guys thought that it was hurting bad on this pullback. It's a lot of these coins are going to show their true colors into the downside on the next one if it goes down there. I want to say again, I don't think that this is going to happen. I don't think that this area is going to happen at all. I do believe that we're going to move down from here, but we could bounce right off this 382. We might bounce off the 0.5. We might bounce off the 618 or anywhere in between, any of those lines, right? It doesn't have to be directly on one of those lines. even a little bit below the 618 is okay. Technically, all the way down to the 886 is fine. But I do think we're going lower from here. It's just going lower from here does bring the risk, right? As we get closer to this low, the risk only goes up of seeing a new low, right? But hopefully this move down results in a higher low. We get some momentum to the upside, break above these highs, start moving up to these highs and break above those as well, and really solidify that this is the low. We haven't done that yet, so that's kind of why we're precariously placed, and I feel like we should wait till the end of the week before really getting too bullish or bearish, because right now it is neutral. Right now the daily RSI, the 4-hour RSI, it's neutral. The price action's neutral, of course it is, but I would say there's a little bit of an air of bearishness right now, in my opinion. I mean, topping off right here, kind of at previous areas of support, resistance, kind of support right here. Could reject, it's possible. From a relative high to low, went all the way up to your 61869 zone, couldn't get through it. Very common to pull back to your 382, which is at 56K in this case, and then move up. You could go all the way down to your 236. It's less common, but that happens as well, right? Just more of the same stuff that I'm saying here. So at any rate, the RSI isn't really helping us out with this. It's not helping us point a direction. So if anything, the weekly would suggest we go lower, and that could happen. The weekly can have lower closes. We could close a week even lower than this low down here, and that's okay. We just don't want to get below this price down here. That's really what we don't want to do. Anyways, moving on, looking at this chart here, this is our stochastic RSI MACD chart, right? I've got the normal one right here that I normally use, which is the 123 moving average, just basic RSI, and then just price action, right? Nothing too fancy there, and not that this is any fancier, right? It's basically the same thing, just two different indicators. But I'm going to run through a bunch of different charts to kind of see if we can come up with the same outlook or different outlooks or things that agree or disagree, stuff like that. The daily RSI, stochastic RSI, I'm sorry, looks bullish. It does suggest that you would want to see continuation. It's very common. I should say it this way, actually. It's very uncommon for the RSI to pick a direction, right? When you get overbought, to pick a direction as in going toward the oversold zone and then turn around midway through in this band here and then go back up to it. That doesn't happen, right? If it wants to be overbought, it just stays in the overbought zone. It stays up here. When it crosses, it almost always goes to the oversold zone. And when it crosses the oversold zone, it almost always, it goes from the low extremes to the high extremes. That's what it does. It's not common to go to your oversold zone, reach up like this, and then come back down into your oversold zone. It's not common at all. Just like it's not common to get overbought, come out of your overbought zone, and then get back into your overbought zone. With the stochastic RSI, it's a little bit different than the actual RSI, right? These are things that are not common, but they happen. Just because it's not common does not mean that you should not consider it as a possibility, especially when other indicators could suggest that you could go lower, right? The reason why I'm saying that is because the way that this daily stochastic is positioned would lead me to believe that we have multiple days still. This indicator by itself would suggest that throughout the rest of this week, likely the rest of this week and even going into next week, we would probably see continued upside. And not just continued upside, but probably a break out of this zone, like bullishly, right? It's not going to be like upside like this. It's going to be like a break probably, because we'll get into the overbought zone and we'll, pop this high point here, so that'll probably give us a nice little pop up to this zone if this is true. However, if we do that thing that's very uncommon, but it happens, but it is uncommon, where you turn around before seeing the overbought zone, which again we've done that before, right? Oversold, didn't get overbought, then oversold, maybe we don't get overbought and we get oversold. It's just not very common to do that, but it does happen. Again, we could go through, I'm not going to go through all the examples, but you could go through this and I bet like 9 out of 10 of them don't do that. 1 out of 10 of them, maybe even less, do act kind of weird. So stochastic RSIs and MACDs, I don't find them extremely useful on like shorter term time frames, like the 4 hour or less. The MACD maybe, but the stochastic, I don't know, it changes so quickly. It's less reliable, I feel like. But on the weekly time frames especially, and on that note, the daily MACD is starting to diverge, right? You're getting that divergence, which is allowing the momentum to build to the downside. That's what the histogram's telling us. You have been very wishy-washy with the 0 point here, with the 0 zone. So this right here just tells me kind of like there's a sense of neutrality in the overall momentum, right, of Bitcoin. You're going up again, and you look at the price action, obviously that's true as well. Up and down and all around, very sideways, just boring kind of movements. But this would suggest opposite of the stochastic daily RSI. It would actually suggest that we go down. However, with that in mind, if this day for Bitcoin closes green, and I think it would need to actually close a little bit more than green, but just a little bit green, maybe above like $59,500, this would not be diverging. They would be converging. You would see a decrease in bearish momentum, and you'd actually potentially see these oscillators pointing up to the zero, which would be a good thing. And you do have, I think, bullish divergence on the oscillators. Yes, you do. Lower lows here in the price, higher lows in the oscillators. That's nice to see. You wouldn't get that if you were just using the histograms, right? It doesn't look like bullish divergence. You have the lower lows. But here, from this oscillator to this oscillator, you do have bullish divergence. However, to be completely fair, that divergence has kind of already played out. Let's be honest. So perhaps you do come lower. Perhaps the MACD is the one telling us the truth, and you do come lower. Perhaps you close a day below this day, and that's your low, and you form some new daily divergence, not just on your oscillators this time, but on your histogram as well, and that's a powerful signal in itself. When you have the oscillators and the histograms agreeing on a divergence, that's nice to see. And then culminating that with the idea that, you know, if we get this divergence to form, you come back down, you get another higher low in this, you get a lower low in the price, and let's just say that this is again, and I say a lower low. I don't mean a lower low than this low. I just mean a lower low on a closing period. Get a lower low in a closing period, an overall higher low. That would solidify this as the low. We start moving up. We might be breaking out of this trend. We get, you know, the daily RSI or stochastic RSI in the overbought zone. We get the MACD to cross above the 0 point here, along with, you know, bullish divergence on the histogram and these oscillators. That could be a nice setup for some higher price targets. So I'm not worried that Bitcoin's moving down. I'm just worried about, you know, the possibility of taking out this low, because we're still not 100% that low is the low. I feel confident enough on it. If somebody wanted to make me a bet on it, I would take that bet. I'd be like, yes, I'll bet that that's the low. But I'm not naive enough to just pretend that that's the low without having further validation, right? And we don't have enough validation, in my opinion. There are some things that are compelling. From a low point to a high point here, we've maintained prices above the 618, above the golden ratio. Actually, no, we haven't. Sorry. Nope. I'm thinking of a different chart. I must be thinking of Bitcoin Cash, because this low to high, I think Bitcoin Cash is above its 6. Maybe not now. So actually, that's not as bullish as I was thinking, but it's still not bad. It's still not bad. Being above the 886 is nice. Just when talking about extensions, right? From a low point here to a high point, this move, you saw the extension, the 1272 of this move here. That's what this move down is. Moving back above the 886 is key. That's nice to see, but then getting above the 618 is really nice as well. However, you just haven't stayed above it. So maybe that does signal we could return back down here or here. It just depends. It all depends. But anyways, I'm talking about things I didn't mean to talk about. Let's move on from here. The weekly stochastic disagrees with the daily stochastic, and this, again, doing something that's uncommon, which is turning around, right? Normally, you don't turn around mid-flight. You go from the ground to the sky, to the ground to the sky, to the ground to the sky. That's normally how it goes. It's a direct flight path, right? You do this. You don't, I mean, you can do this, and that's okay, still working your way up, but you don't normally do this and then come down without getting overbought, at least, right? Even if it's for a short amount of time. That's the normal thing. And this here, I would say, even still falls in the realm of normality, because you didn't get oversold yet. You bounced off it, came up, but you were still just working your way down here. So that's still normal. It's just stuff like this that's not normal. Stuff like this is not normal, but it happens. It does happen. And right now, the blue oscillator that's the faster moving oscillator, right? Moving average probably, or what is it on the stochastic? I don't know. Anyways, the blue line, the faster moving one, is in the oversold zone. The red line, the slower moving one, is not. There is a possibility, if this week can close green, that this stochastic RSI could not be quite so oversold. But I have a feeling that with the way it looks already, you've already had multiple weekly closes since this turnaround here. I wouldn't be surprised if you did get oversold again, which would just, again, imply lower weekly closes. We might get a week that closes below 56K is what this would imply. And the weekly MACD is definitely building some bearish momentum. Absolutely it is. We are well above the zero line here, right? With our oscillators, if we continue to build momentum, we can get that bullish divergence, right? as long as we don't, take out that level there. But we can get that bullish divergence if we get a week to close below here. I don't know. I feel like a week that closes below there might actually take out the idea of bullish divergence. But I think that'd be okay. You don't need bullish divergence to form a low, right? Case in point, I guess you had some right there, to be completely fair. Anyways, coming down, building momentum to the downside, the oscillators are coming down too. Perhaps they'll find support on the 0 line and then move up. So this would allow for you to come down and still be relatively bullish, I would say. So I'm not worried about it there. But again, multiple things kind of here suggesting that you'd go down as well. So far, the only bullish thing that we've gone over is the daily stochastic RSI, which is a lot less reliable than the weekly, in my opinion. They're reliable, definitely reliable, but with the stochastic, I feel like the longer term time frames are the ones that matter the most. And again, just like with the regular RSI, the monthly is weird. It like doesn't follow the normal rules. So these turnarounds seem to be not as uncommon, right? High to low here, low to high to low here, low to high, and then I guess that wasn't a turnaround, or that was a turnaround right there. We might have another turnaround here. I don't know. Was that COVID crash? Yeah, COVID crash times. I don't know what this would be, what merits that, but hopefully this doesn't mean that we're going all the way down here. Normally these topping points are like at the end of our cycles, right? Like when we cross back down, it's like the end of our cycles. Or I guess here it wasn't. It was the end of a move, right? You started crossing down as the end of this like move up. You did have more to go. Here, this cross down was the, out of the oversold or overbought zone was the end of the cycle. End of a move, and then end of the cycle, but not the end of the high, right? Not the beginning of the bear cycle just yet. Anyways, definitely the end of this move, but I believe we have more to go. Anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about the EMA ribbon. We might go over, what is it, the Bollinger Bands. We'll look at those real quick and then probably finish this thing up. I wanted to look at the Heikin-Ashi. I actually looked at the Heikin-Ashi chart, and there's not really a whole lot going on there. Like, it'd be nice to get this month to close green on the Heikin-Ashi. That's all I could say, but if it closes red, it's really not that detrimental at all. Looking at the daily on Bitcoin here, this ribbon looks very weak. It looks not well respected, right? And you can see that normally in moments where you're consolidating like this is when the ribbon looks like this. It's all tight together. It's not that well respected. You're going above it. You're going below it. It's not. You're not holding it as support and then holding it as support again and again and again. You're not. When it gets thin like this, it's easier to break through. Obviously, right? Thicker would be harder to break through. So it's less reliable in a sense, but it still does give us some setups with this, right? Like you're finding your resistance here on the yellow line, started to go down more as the bands are expanding. Here, you flipped above it, found support on it, went up a little bit higher, but then, pulled back into it, and it was a crap fest. Sorry, I thought I heard my daughter cry. Right now, we're finding resistance on the band time and time again. It really did look like over the past couple days, because we had not gotten a rejection off of this band, it was starting to look like we were going to cross into it. It was looking very bullish, but yesterday, man, that bearish engulfing candle is not a good look. So with that in mind, we might be rejecting this similar to this, and we might not get a lower low, but again, I am in favor of the idea of like a lower closing low. Something like that could happen. And the daily closing low will be different than the weekly, will be different, than the, I guess than the weekly. Maybe they'll be the same, but I don't like this. All that to say, I don't like the way this looks. The 4 hour is very insignificant, very weak as well, very disrespected. So the fact that it's crossing down doesn't mean a whole lot, but I can just say it doesn't look good, that's for sure. And then the weekly ribbon is bullishly postured, but I will say I'm a little bit nervous about it in a way that I wouldn't expect, but the more I've been looking at it, it is something that is a little bit concerning for me, okay? We'll just go over why. We'll go over a brief history of Bitcoin, okay? And it's not that it doesn't do this stuff at all, but it's just less common, right? And most of the time when it does what it's doing now, that's not a good thing. Here you go, dipping into the ribbon, dipping out, dipping in, dipping out, right? Moving on up. Didn't even get to it. Moving on up. Dipped in right here, dipped out. Then you started to live in it. You resided in it. You dipped in. You dipped out, but you didn't really like continue. You didn't pump out, right? Like you still hung around here, and you got back in it immediately. And this kind of difference, instead of like just prodding it and getting a boost each time, this kind of difference kind of signaled the beginning of your bear market. Okay, just like this over here, right? You're moving down. You don't even touch it, but around this area, boom, up. You tipped it, boom, up. Tipped it, boom, up. You touched it again the next week, and you didn't move up. You didn't move up, or I guess actually this would be the same week. You didn't move up all the way up here this week, but you didn't move up as high. You didn't set new highs, and then you came back and you got into it again. You started residing into it. You consolidated for a little while. This time you did not begin the bear market, right? But still, this is one of those times where it would kind of be concerning because it's not doing what it normally does, and it makes sense that it's not doing what it normally does because it is a longer phase of consolidation in the middle of the bull cycle, which could be what we're experiencing now. But again, tipped it, didn't get a higher high, got back into it again, started living in it, and that was the beginning of the bear market, right? Tipped it, kind of grinded on it for a little bit there, but not that long, right? Still staying above it, residing above it for the most of the time, right? You might be interacting with it or in the ribbon every single week, but closing above it every single week nonetheless. Tipping it, moving higher each time, tipping it, and then you got here, you moved up, didn't get a higher high, got back into it, got even below it, and this was kind of the this was the beginning of the bear market. Sorry, I thought we were on the next one there. This one we had COVID times. We didn't even actually find support. We just lived in it, and that should have signaled in itself that there were problems with Bitcoin, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Is that we are living in it right now. Are there problems with Bitcoin? Is there a problem with the bull market? And I'm not convinced. I don't want to scare anybody. I'm not withholding information or my true beliefs because I don't want to scare anybody. I'm genuinely not worried about this, but it does make me scratch my head. It's more common for this to be a bad thing than it is to be something that we shouldn't be worried about, right? But I think there's a bunch of other things that are going on that kind of give us some grace, give us a little bit of wiggle room with this ribbon right now. But nonetheless, I don't like the weekly. I don't like that we're living in it right now. This is not normally a good thing. On the bright side, we haven't really started a bear market, have we? Like we've had enough time to do that. Yes, we've got lower lows, and yes, we've got lower highs, but this really does truly, to me at least, it looks like a consolidation phase. And I'm not just saying that, right? I'm not saying that because I want the bull market to continue. Of course I do, but like it just looks like a broadening wedge. It absolutely like it's so clean. It's so clean. It looks just like a cup and handle. Shout out to Leaf and Apache Garage for showing me this, and I'm sure everybody has seen it from somebody, but it absolutely looks like a cup and handle. It's the cleanest looking cup and handle I've ever seen. That handle might be a little bit big, to be completely fair, but I don't know. This is crypto, man. Things get big. Let's see here. So I think I've done that enough. Let's move on and finish this thing up. So, nope, we don't need this. Or actually, okay, a little bit of a something that I would say, and this is going to be part of the long-term analysis that I was going to do, but I'm just going to throw it in here now because we did finish off with this notion of this could be bad for the bull cycle. Let's finish on a notion that could be positive for the bull cycle, okay? Looking at this monthly RSI, right? This is the basic setup that I normally have with the 123 moving average and just our standard RSI. Each of these cycle peaks, this one here, came in with this high here. I'll just draw vertical lines so that we can kind of validate that without really spending too much time on it, right? Each high, you can see I'm putting vertical lines there, right, on each high. I'm going to put a line on the cycle high, technically not the end of the cycle. This is the first end of the cycle that was not the cycle high. Every other cycle end was the cycle high, but here the cycle ended, whereas the cycle high was a little bit later, right? We had that fake out. And we don't have it now, so I don't think we're at our cycle high now. But looking at this in mind, right, keeping all these lines in mind for the cycle high, you can see that they come in at these high points in the RSI, right? This one did not. This one came in at a lower point, right? All these other ones, something else I want to mention, came in not at the first peak, but the second peak. Not at the first peak, but the second peak, right? Not at the first peak, but the second peak. Not at the first peak, but the second peak. 2 peaks each time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Further away, but this was the peak where the higher high came in. As of right now, we have one peak. And is this even a peak that's worth qualifying as one peak? It hasn't interacted with this line. This would be the first peak, the first of the first peaks that has not interacted with this line, right, on a monthly basis. A very significant line throughout Bitcoin's history. It's absolutely been respecting this line every single cycle. And this is the furthest away we've been from it. And it's because of this consolidation phase, right? Are we gearing up right now? A lot of people think this next move up is going to be the end of the cycle, but are we gearing up right now for something that will signal that the end of the cycle is coming, right? Just like these first peaks all did, but also signal that we're not done yet. We've got one more push up in us, right? You know, that's kind of my hopes, at least. But one way or another, however you want to look at this, whether this next peak is the second peak or not, it at least gives the notion that we have more work to do. That the cycle's probably not over. Of course, this could be the end of this. You know, it could be. You never know. I very much don't think it is. I would take anybody's bet that this is not the end of the cycle. Absolutely, I would. I would go straight McAfee on that bet, man. If you guys don't know what that means, let's just say he made a bet that he would eat his own sausage, his own homemade sausage. If Bitcoin wasn't at like $1 million or $100,000 or so, I think it was $100,000 by the end of 2020 or 2021. I forget. Back when he was alive. Enough of that though. This video's gone on longer than I wanted it to anyways, but just a little hope there. I feel like that, you know, look at the monthly RSI. It doesn't even have to be at the 10. Like mine's set to a 10. Yours could be at a 14 or a 18 or a 8, you know, whatever. It's probably going to look very, very much the same. They might not be at the exact same areas, but you're going to get that respected line on the monthly basis nonetheless. So still in a position of strength on the monthly, still looking like you're consolidating. Consolidating around the previous all-time highs is not a bad thing either. But let's jump back into the short-term stuff. Let's look at this Bollinger Band and be done with it. I'm less familiar with the Bollinger Band, so forgive me if I sound ignorant at all. But generally speaking, from what I do know, when you're closing outside of the band and then rejecting the blue line, that's not normally good. That's not normally a good thing. This actually, everything about this would suggest that we continue lower. In my opinion, to what I know about this thing. The weekly is contracting a little bit, and we are reaching on the bottom side. That's not a good look in itself either. That would actually suggest that we start moving lower. The Bollinger Band, and again, this is my least, this is the indicator that I have the least experience with, I would say. It looks to me to be the most bearish out of all of them, right? Like here, you were tipping this lower line, the lower limits, but you weren't closing in it when you were consolidating, right? When you were contracting here, when things were really tight, not when they were wide open like this, right? When it was tight, you were tiptoeing on this, but not closing below it, certainly not wicking well below it like that, right? And then when you did start closing above or below, when you start closing outside of these lines, you chose that direction. When you did start closing outside these lines, I'm worried we could choose that direction. And this wouldn't be what this would imply wouldn't be the same thing that I've been talking about all video, which is a higher low. This to me would imply lower lows. That's what it would imply. Unless we do something right now. Unless this is the weekly, so it has a little bit more time, but something within the next month and a half or so, we need to get back up above $70,000 and fast. But technically not super fast, but relatively fast. Less than 2 months, a little bit over a month, I think, is the time frame that we have on that. And certainly over the next couple weeks, we do not want to close below the band. We don't want to. We do not want to have interactions below the band. It already looks so bad, in my opinion. It really doesn't look good at all. The monthly, however, looks phenomenal. This does look good. So little intermediate bearishness, maybe a little long-term bullishness. And the daily also does not help with the idea of going up either. Finding resistance on this blue line. You know, last time that we closed below the band, hit the blue line, and then went down lower to close below it, hit the band. I don't know. It doesn't have to happen like that every single time, right? But here you didn't find resistance. You actually closed above it. Here you did close above it, but then you went down lower. You know, it's not 100%. No indicator is, but I feel like the daily and the weekly on the Bollinger Band definitely look bearish. So I don't know, guys. That's all I got for you. Hit the like button if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I don't normally do super in-depth videos like this, especially for the short term, but after some feedback that I got from the vultures of the Discord, no, shout out to Mr. Hat on that note. No, he's not the only one that said it either. I've wanted to start, implementing other indicators, and I've wanted to do this for some time, but just like, do things that are a little bit different outside of this, like looking for other indicators. I just don't. Looking at a bunch of different indicators can be good, but it can also be bad. But I feel like these are all simple. Like we're not going overboard with it. Like what we've gone over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's just moving averages, whatever. Like really, this 5 would be the same as. Oh, I didn't even bring it up on this one. No, never mind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 6. So that's really not that many indicators. I don't know. Some people might think that is. Some people 2 to 3 is all you need, and that's kind of how I am. But some people need like 4 to 8. If you're using more than 8, I don't know. I don't know if that's good, unless there's like a bunch of indicators built into one indicator, kind of like Market Cipher is for CryptoFace. Although I think that's actually maybe it's probably not 8 indicators, but. Or like the Jewel on Eric Crown Crypto. If you guys want to buy indicators, on that note, I was going to end this video, but I've said this before. I've said this in my live streams, that I don't think that any YouTuber has a paid group or a signals group that you pay for, right? That is actually worth it, right? They're going to post all their calls publicly because they want those calls to be seen publicly. They might give the people who are paying for the groups, they might give that information to them firsthand, and that might have its advantages. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But they're going to share that information. Like I haven't seen a paid group that doesn't share the information that they charge people for publicly. I haven't seen that happen. So it's like essentially it's almost like a waste of money. And I'm saying that I've done paid groups before. I didn't think it was worth it. I've had people who have told me they've done paid groups before, and every single time they say it's not worth it, But I say it's not worth it, but that's not even true. Whenever I joined the paid group, I wanted to support somebody, and I actually got something out of it. I did it for like a few months, but I stopped doing it because it really wasn't it wasn't anything too special. But I did want to show support for the person. I actually liked the person, so that's why I did it. And in that sense, I think it's okay, showing support. But these paid groups, most of the time, not all of them. There's some out there, and I don't know of any of them, so don't ask me. But there's some out there that I've heard of that are worth the money, right? But that's not common. However, what is somewhat common, and even still not that common, but what is common, what got me started on this whole tangent is indicators. Indicators like Market Cipher B, like Eric Crown's Jewel indicator, or the data analytics tool that he has. I forget what it's called. I think Caretaker made it, or if anybody knows Crown's Crypto, somebody made it. Maybe it's not Caretaker. I don't know. But tools like that. Tone Vase, he's got the what is it called that he uses? Oh, why can't I'm drawing a blank on it? I don't know. Tone Vase made an indicator. Those there's paid groups which I think are not worth it. Is all I'm trying to say at this end of the video here. But if you're trying to spend your money on something to up your game trading, indicators are worth it most of the time. Like if you it's easier, I think, to find an indicator that's worth it because you can see it being used more or less. You just don't know the ins and outs of it. You can see it being used and see the results. Versus a paid group, you don't really know what the results are until you've paid for it, and then you're like, oh, this is just the same thing, but I'm paying for it. You know what I mean? Where the indicator is like they're giving you the keys to the car, and so all this last part I'm trying to say is just I wanted to implement some other indicators. They're not that fancy. There's some people that use indicators that have multiple indicators built inside of them. The Market Cipher B from CryptoFace came to my mind, and the Jewel from Crown's Crypto Cave came to my mind. But there's all kinds of people. For anybody who's still watching this video, if you're looking for references for indicators, people to look at if you want to look at indicators or different ways to analyze crypto and like different avenues of analytics. Willy Woo has Glassnode, and there's a whole avenue of stuff that you can go in with Glassnode that's pretty awesome. Phenomenal job there, I think. Crown's Crypto with the Jewel, and there's other indicators that he has too, which I think are all awesome as well. And he gives you tutorials on those for free, right? Totally free. Like they're on his YouTube channel right now, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe you pay for it. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that the tutorials are free. But you have to pay for the indicator, obviously. Market Cipher B from CryptoFace. Ben Cohen has some like data analytical stuff as well, kind of like Willy Woo, but it's his own. It's not the same. But I think. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Is it Ethan Cohen? Why am I drawing a blank on his name right now? Oh, Benjamin Cohen. Wow. I think he's got some good indicators as well. And then BitBoy has the high IQ indicator. I don't know if that's worth it personally. There's a lot of people that make indicators that aren't worth it, right? Just like there's a lot of people who have paid groups that aren't worth it, but it's a bit easier to decipher which ones are trash or not. So if anybody's looking for an indicator that's outside of the norms, outside of the things that I've talked about, even outside of the things that are not as commonly seen that we might see on other channels or you've heard of before, but I don't really bring it up on this channel. Outside of those normal indicators, there's plenty of indicators that are out there that are worth the money. And they're not cheap. Maybe they're cheap to some people. They're an investment. It depends on your status of money. But like if it's hard to scrape together $1,000 or multiple thousands of dollars, or even like $800, some of those indicators might be out of reach for you. And it's an investment of time too, because you got to learn. You got to trust that you're using the right indicator, and you got to put your time into using it as well. But I don't know, just food for thought, man. Food for thought at the end of this Bitcoin video. For any aspiring technical analysts right there, I don't really believe in paying for indicators. I don't think that you need them to. There's plenty of free indicators that you can use to generate good results still. But to each their own. And I've thought about buying some indicators at some point, but I always chicken out. But maybe this year I will throw the hammer down. I don't know. Anyways, guys, Bitcoin's precariously placed. I'd really like to talk about it more in depth again on Sunday, but we'll probably talk about it a couple times here and there throughout the week. All in all, I think we're going lower from the current price at about 58.4, 58.5K. I think we're going a little bit lower. I'm optimistic that we don't go lower. There are things suggesting that we will break out of this to the upside. There are more things suggesting that we'll break out to the downside. There are plenty of things suggesting we will have higher lows. There are some things suggesting that we will get lower lows. So hopefully, if we don't break out to the upside, hopefully the higher lows things come into play. Precariously placed right now, I do think we're going to come down. If we break out to the upside, I'd love to be wrong. But if we break out to the downside, I want to be right in the sense that it's a higher low. I don't want to be wrong in the sense that it's a lower low. So I guess how we would know that we're getting a lower low. I mean, first off, obviously we'd get a lower low, but closing any day below $50,600 would be very incriminating. We can close days below 54K, and I'd be okay with that, but it depends on how we do it. I wouldn't want to see us close below 54K either. That would get me to sweat. We can go below 54K, but I don't want to see us go close below it. Anyways, guys, I really am done this time. I promise you. I know I do this all the time. Some of you have caught on in the comments. You're like, I stick around for the part that you say, this is the end of the video, because I know the good stuff's coming. That's or sometimes it's just random stuff. But I appreciate you all for being here. Take care of yourselves. Opportunities are abundant, and some opportunities might be opening up over the next couple days too, with Bitcoin coming down. So that's all I got. Take care. Bye-bye.